1 to 4 per 10,000 of the children is acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Study then shows ALL is account for 32% of all the malignancies in children, all the malignancies, including the hematological malignancies plus the solid tumors. About 32% is the acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Basically, there is a peak, two peaks. The common peak is of 2 to 3 years. That is the preschoolers. Is approximately that is fourfold greater than the infants and about 5 folds greater than the more than 10 years of age. The common age group is 2 to 5 or 2 to 3 years. More common in Hispanic and Caucasian than in the black. The risk factor, basically, the pathogenesis, that what is responsible for acute lymphoblastic leukemia or acute leukemias overall. There is a two-hit theory. The theory is that the first mutation occurs in the in utero, in the cells, hematopoietic stem cells, but the disease did not progress. When the second hit occurs after birth, due to different environmental factors, second mutations occur, that leads to the developmental of acute lymphoblastic leukemia. So both the in utero factors and external factors, these are responsible for leukemias. So the risk factors that leads to the development of acute lymphoblastic leukemias or acute leukemias be mostly unknown, but the genetic predisposition is the most likely cause. That is the two theory, and few cases, less than 5% of the cases, these are associated with some inherited or genetics in different genetic and inherited syndromes or chromosomal disorders, chromosomal translocations or mutations that occur in utero and that is affected later on by the different environmental factors, leads to the major chunk of these lymphoblastic leukemias. So what are the factors that is predisposing to ALL? The different genetic and environmental factor. Genetic factor that is responsible for less than 5% of these leukemias. The common that these are the leukemias are common: Down syndrome, Fanconi's anemia, neurofibromatosis, telangiectasia. All these syndromes, basically, they have a defect in the repair of DNA. These DNA, most of these syndromes, they have associated DNA repair defects. And whenever the DNA repair, there is defect in the DNA repair, these cells becomes mutated and becomes more proliferated, leads to the development of leukemia, more common as compared to the general population in this genetic diseases. And the environmental factor that is supposed to related to the development of leukemias, including the radiations, drugs including different alkylating agents, epidurofalatoxin, benzene groups, and some say that advanced maternal age group that leads to the Down syndrome, and Down syndrome have more predisposition to develop leukemia. So these are the different predisposing risk factor for acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The common symptoms that is most related to at your level and how they present. As we already said that there is a defect in that there is these blast cells infiltrate the bone marrow, replace the normal bone marrow cells, cause marrow failure. So most of the time these children present with the signs and symptoms that is related to these blood cells. So they present with fever because of the decreased WBC count or ineffective WBCs. They present with different infections, higher fever. Weight loss in acute leukemia is not there most of the time because they're usually present with a short history, not more than months, but they usually present within 1 month. They usually present with the history of fever for the past 4 weeks or past 2 weeks, not more than that. So these because acute leukemia presents very early. Sometimes they present with weight loss. They present with weight loss is not the part of acute leukemia. It may be the part of chronic myeloid leukemia. But these symptoms are basically for the overall leukemias and lymphomas. Signs and symptoms are weight loss, fever. They may present with shortness of breath. If there is mediastinal mass, they may present with weakness, generalized weakness. Acute leukemias, they present with bone pain. That's why the differential diagnosis, they may be misdiagnosed as a case of rheumatic fever. They may be misdiagnosed as a case of juvenile rheumatoid arthritis because severe bone pain. And these bone pain is related to excessive proliferation of lymphoid in the bone marrow. That leads to bone pain and severe bone pain and tetanus. They may present with the history of, because of the fever, decreased appetite. They may present with different lymphoids, lymph nodes, large lymph nodes. They may present with hepatosplenomegaly. They may present, particularly the lymphomas. They present with night sweats, fever, and bleeding purpose. They may present with bleeding from the gums. They may present with different skin bleed, present with petechia, bruises. Okay. So the common presentation in ALL, 39 per 5, 39 or 40% they present with bleeding. Bleeding, like most commonly, they present with bleeding from the gums, okay, from the nose, not with a heavy bleeding from the GI or say, but they present with bleeding from the gums, skin bleeds. So 40% is responsible, 40% of the cases. They may present with different infection with fever. They present with lymphadenopathy. They present with hepatosplenomegaly. The common is the bleeding, sorry, infection, fever, bleeding, hepatosplenomegaly, lymphadenopathy, or they may present, if they may present with breathlessness in case if the leukemia is associated with a large mediastinal mass that compress the respiratory airway path and leads to difficulty in breathing and chest pain. When the child is present to you with the short history of fever and bleeding or petechia and bruises, or present with history of lymph and on examination you find that the child have lymphadenopathy or may have hepatosplenomegaly, the differential diagnosis you can consider in that case is the topmost is the leukemia, acute leukemia. That is for the you may also consider if they present with, sometimes they only present with fever and bone pains. So may you do differential diagnosis, maybe rheumatoid arthritis. Later on, when you see do the CBC, you found that there is pancytopenia or there is anemia or thrombocytopenia. Then you further um, do the workup that includes for the diagnosis of the leukemia. The workup you have to do. The first is CBC. Whenever the child is present with fever, high grade fever, bleeding, bruises and petechia, and they present with lymphadenopathy, and you find hepatosplenomegaly, these are the common signs and symptoms that these children of acute leukemia have. So further workup, the first thing you do is the CBC. In CBC, you have to check for the anemia, you have to check for the thrombocytopenia, you have to check for the WBC count. In most of the cases, WBC count may be high, maybe more than 50,000, but it usually occur in less than 15 to 20% of the cases. Sometimes they may present with leukopenia, only 2,000, 3,000 cells, or they may present with counts of 25,000, 26,000. But most of the cells are lymphocytes. Normally, we have 46, 47% of neutrophils and 46% of lymphocytes. But in case of the leukemias, they have more than 85% or 90% are the lymphocytes. And on peripheral smear, if you assess the do a good peripheral smear, that shows blasts in the peripheral, but not in all the cases. But most of the cases, blasts are present in the peripheral blood also. 20% of the patient present with pancytopenia, that is, there is decreased platelets, WBCs all. Sometimes they may present with a high WBC count, not at all time, but they may present with the count of more than 1 lakh with complications. So first do the CBC, and for the definitive diagnosis, these are the this is the leukemia, you have to go for the bone marrow. But nowadays, if there is excesses of blast cells in the peripheral, in the periphery or in the blood, you may directly go for flow cytometry. And in flow cytometry, you can diagnose the disease very early, within 24 hours. But if the flow cytometry facilities are not available, and then or the peripheral blood do not show the high count, then the flow cytometry of peripheral blood is not helping us. Then you have to go for bone marrow. For bone marrow, you have to do bone marrow aspirate. Usually we do not go for the trephine, but if the flow cytometry facility is available, then you directly aspirate the blood bone marrow and send it for the flow cytometry. But if the flow cytometry facility is not available, then you have to take the trephine and send it for immunohistochemistry, phenotyping, and cytogenetics. Cytogenetics is basically done on the bone marrow aspirate. Sometimes it is in fish. You can do cytogenetics also on the peripheral blood. For the importance of cytogenetics is that it decides the risk stratification of leukemia, because some cytogenetics, some translocations are in favor of the prognosis, and some cytogenetics, these indicates that these children are high risk. So you have to, before starting treatment in leukemia, you have to do stratification classify the diagnosis of acute lymphoblastic leukemia into standard risk, high risk, and very high risk. And all these depend upon the different factors that we later on decide, study. So confirmatory bone marrow biopsy, marrow biopsy, we usually taken at the level of the LEA crest from here. But in children who are less than 1 year, we can take the bone marrow aspirate and biopsy from the tibia also. So this is the bone marrow needle, and you take the strip from here. And aspirate, you have just to aspirate the bone marrow and send it for flow cytometry and cytogenetics also. These are the different cytogenetics or translocations that may occur in a child with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Some are these are the good. Some indicates that this is that are responsible for the good prognosis, and some for the bad prognosis, like haploidiploidy. Haploidiploidy, translocation 1221, these are the good prognostic factors. Compared to this, BCR-ABL, if someone has cytogenetics positive for BCR-ABL, or FISH positive for BCR-ABL, and MLL gene rearrangement, that is more common in infantile leukemia. They have very bad prognosis, and we kept it in that very high risk group. And most of the time, they need bone marrow transplant. Otherwise, in acute leukemia with good prognosis, with good who have haploidiploidy or have translocation, they usually they have a very good prognosis. They have outcome of about more than 95% cure rate of acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Further workup, the basic diagnostic workup is the CBC and the bone marrow troponin aspirate and the flow cytometry. And along with this diagnostic workup, we have to do chest radiograph to evaluate for mediastinal hemolysis. Most likely the T cell. As I said, the leukemia ALL is onto B cell or T cell. The T cell leukemias, that is account for about 15 to 20% of all the acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and pre-B cells is responsible for about 70% of all the leukemias. Then mediastinal hemolysis are more common, is associated with T lymphoblastic leukemia. So you have to do chest radiograph to evaluate for mediastinal mass, because if the child have a large, huge mediastinal mass, you have to do some precautions. Otherwise, if you keep the child in a flat position and you have to do some procedure in anesthesia, they may become severe respiratory distress. So before doing any procedure in a child with suspected leukemia, you have to do chest radiograph to evaluate for mediastinal mass. You have to do ultrasonography because in male child, they may present with testicular involvement, or they may present with CNS involvement. To evaluate for this, you have to go for first the examination. Obviously, on examination, you find enlarged testes or enlargement of the testicular region. So that indicates that this child may have testicular involvement in leukemia. You go for ultrasonography to confirm it. For CNS involvement, we have to do lumbar puncture and send the CSF for diagnostic purpose, do the DR, do CR cytology. If it indicates that there are blast cells in these CSF, indicates that the child is CNS positive leukemia. That is a very high risk leukemia. So any child who have testicular involvement in male, or any child who have CNS positive 3 involvement, that we kept in the category of very high risk. They need more ITs, they need more intrathecal chemotherapy. They may need radiation also, cranial radiations also. Otherwise, in leukemia, we don't need radiation, but in case of CNS3 positive patients, we may have to give radiation therapy also. And on the baseline, we need echo. For echo, because the chemotherapy, they may need anthracyclines, particularly the high risk group. So we have to do the baseline echo for assessment of the cardiac status at the start of your chemotherapy. But these are all the associated workup, supportive workup only. But the diagnostic workup is only the bone marrow aspirate or flow cytometry. This is the ALL risk stratification, because this is basically, we do stratification because chemotherapy, as we know, that they have a very high side effects. Chemo drugs have very high side effects. So on the basis of this stratification, we have to give a standard is, we give low dose, reduced amount of chemotherapy to those who are put in the standard risk group, and those who are in high risk group, we give high dose of chemotherapy and more chemotherapy drug we use. Okay, and in very high group particularly, we may need directly after remission, we may need bone marrow transplant in a very high risk group. A bone marrow transplant indication is only in the very high risk group, or those who have induction failure and those who present with a recurrent relapse of the leukemia. They may need bone marrow transplant. Otherwise, these children they have very good prognosis only with the chemotherapy. For stratification, those who are in the age group of 2 years to 10 years, less than 10 years, these kept in the standard. Those who are more than 10 years, they are always high risk. Less than 1 year and more than 10 years is a high risk group. WBC count, if it is less than 50,000, it is if we kept in the standard. But if the WBC count is more than 50,000, high risk group. CNS status positive plus 3 is in high risk group. It's a different immunophenotype. Like B cells, pre-B cells are in the standard group. But if the child have T cell is always in the high risk. If we do not treat the T cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia at the lower age group, even with the WBC count less than 50,000 and standard, it's always capped in the high risk group. Certain karyotyping like hyperdiploidy is a standard risk group. Hypo is kept in the very high risk group. On the basis of molecular MLL, as I already said, there's certain mutations. MLL positive, Philadelphia chromosome positive, they kept in a very high risk group. We do the induction chemotherapy, and when they get remission, we directly go for bone marrow transplant for good outcome. Okay, but for the standard risk group, we may start chemotherapy with only the 3 drugs. For high risk group, we start chemotherapy with the 4 drugs, and they have different stages also. Important factor, one of the most important factor is your chemotherapy response. Those who becomes or bone marrow at day 15 or after completion of the reduction is less than 5% of the blast, that is, they have very good response, they have good prognosis. But those who have still bone marrow blast is more than 5%, more than 10%, and after completion of the induction, we call it induction failure. They directly go for a high risk therapy and bone marrow transplant. But if the bone marrow is clear, MRD is less than 0.01 at the end of the induction, we kept in a standard risk group, and they will have very good prognosis later on. So your prognosis depends upon your response to your chemotherapy at the end of the induction. Basically, the treatment of acute lymphoblastic leukemia is the chemotherapy. The conventional chemotherapy. We do not use the targeted chemotherapy in a standard risk group as compared to the adult. In adult, most of the time we use targeted agents. But in children, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, we use conventional chemotherapies. We give chemotherapies, and we also give the CNS prophylaxis, ITs, intrathecal medicine. The basic treatment also, this is the specific treatment. But these children need the supportive care. Supportive care what? They may need transfusion of blood platelets, packed cells, they need antibiotics, they need care, because most of the cause of expiry or death in these children is a severe infection, because they have very they have very suppressed bone marrow, so they are very opportunistic for infections. So they need supportive care with antibiotic. They may need ICU care for the treatment of severe infection and treatment of complications. Sometimes these lymphoblastic leukemia children may present with very high blood WBC count, more than 2 lakh. So they may need leukapheresis. So we need complicated. Hyperleukocytosis is one of the complications. Other complication of leukemias include tumor lysis syndrome. What is tumor lysis syndrome? When we give chemotherapy to this huge amount of cells, they start lysing. They release different electrolytes, and these electrolytes may cause renal failure and CNS effect. That is called the tumor lysis syndrome. We have to treat these complications also. And the total duration of chemotherapy is for Palejota. Male we usually give chemotherapy for 3 years, but nowadays both male and female we give chemotherapy for about 2.5 years to 3 years. This is the total duration of chemotherapy. The basic is the induction. Induction is usually of 28 days, that is followed by the consolidation, that is reinduction, or you can say the reinduction, or not reinduction, but is the optimizing the induction is the consolidation phase. We use different chemotherapeutic drugs. The basic backbone of chemotherapy in leukemias is the prednisolone, steroids. We may give in the form of daltecotyl or dexamethasone. Other include the vincristine, aspergillase. Basically, you know that there are different phases: induction phase, that is followed by the consolidation, interim maintenance, delayed intensification, and finally the maintenance. These are, most of them are 1 month, 2 months, or 1.5 months. And but this is overall is about 6 months. It takes induction, these all phases take about 6 months. Maintenance is about 1.5 or 2 years. So the total duration of therapy is about 2.5 years in both male and female. We use different chemotherapy convention. And for those who are CNS positive, we have give more ITs, intrathecal medicine, and they may need CNS3, also need cranial radiation. So, and the prognosis is depend upon the induction results, the MRD of the patient, phenotype, pre-B have very good prognosis, age less group, those who are in the standard group have very good prognosis, about more than 95% get KO'd. As compared to them, high risk group are less, like about this have prognosis about 60%. In very high risk group, they may have KO rate of about 30% only. But relapse chances is always there. In the standard risk group, less chances as compared to the very high risk. Very high risk group have more chances to get relapse. So the overall event-free survival or cure rate is about cure rate. In children, we tested that as cure rate is 85%. The standard risk group, we can go up to 95% with good standard chemotherapy. So this is all about the acute lymphoblastic leukemias. Then acute myeloid leukemias, these are responsible for about 11% or 15% of all the acute leukemias. But these children have this, if there is genetic mutations at the level of the myeloid precursors, that leads to acute myeloid leukemia. Acute myeloid leukemia is further classified depends upon the type of the cell get affected. Like as already mentioned, if it affects the megakaryocyte, it is M6, M5, monoblast, M1, M2. It depends upon the how premature is the cell, how differentiated is the cell. So we further classified acute myeloblastic leukemia की जो category होती है, acute myeloid leukemia into these is all this acute myeloid leukemia with different mutations, acute myeloid leukemia with maturation, without maturation in M0, M0, M1, M2, AML is M3. Very good. The best prognosis is with the ALI promyelocytic leukemia. Best prognosis is acute promyelocytic leukemia has the very best prognosis around 75%. Otherwise, the overall prognosis of acute myeloid leukemia is not good. In our setup, the prognosis is around 73%, so it's around 30% only. Except in some cases, those who have very good cytogenetics, then they have the prognosis around 70% also. But all depends upon the cytogenetics, all depends upon the type of the cell get affected, type of the myeloid leukemia the child have. The best prognosis is with the APML, acute promyelocytic leukemia, is a subtype that has a very good prognosis of around 75%. So different cytogenetics like this. The recurrent cytogenesis of translocation 821, inversion sex, PML RARA, they have very good prognosis. They have a outcome of around 70%. But those who have these NPMA, then they have very bad prognosis. Acute promyelocytic leukemia related to megakaryocyte have very bad prognosis. So good prognosis depends upon the type of the acute myeloid leukemia you have, or the cytogenetics the child have. Okay. But overall, acute myeloid leukemia do not have a good prognosis. Overall, you can say the outcome is around 30 to 50% only with a good high dose chemotherapy. For acute myeloid leukemia, we have a very high dose chemotherapy. That's why most of the children do not die for the disease. Most of the children die due to severe infection that they develop during the chemotherapy, because they have very high dose chemotherapy. Their bone marrow gets suppressed and they acquire a very severe infections, and most of the time they die due to these severe infections and bleed. So the clinical manifestations of both leukemias overall are the same. There is no difference. You can, on the basis of sign and symptoms, you can say that this is acute lymphoblastic leukemia or acute myeloid leukemia. They usually have the same sign and symptoms that is related to the marrow failure. They present with the bleeding, they present with the fever, they may present with lymph nodes. They may sometimes present with the skin involvement also. Infiltration of the gender with the gingival hyperplasia or bleeding. The most commonly the acute promyelocytic leukemia present with DIC. They have very high PTAPTT and they may present with severe bleeding and die of that. So so we have to do PT and APTT in these children, and those who have very high PTT, you have to treat with fresh frozen plasma. So the treatment is basically also of the AML is also the chemotherapy. With chemotherapy, you do induction, and if the child is in remission, then the basic is the bone marrow transplant. Most of the children accept the age group that we have very good cytogenetic factors. They do not need transplant. They only cure with the chemotherapy. But most of the children who have acute myeloid leukemia, they need remission followed by bone marrow transplant for good outcome. Except in the case of promyelocytic leukemia, the targeted therapy we use is the ATRA or Tretranon, and that's why these targeted therapy, when we give this to these children with acute promyelocytic leukemia, they have good prognosis of around 75%. Most, not 5%, most of the children, those who receive very high dose chemotherapy, they are die due to infection or bleed, not due to the disease. So acute myeloid leukemia account for 15%, and they have usually most of the time with good poor cytogenetics, they have very bad prognosis. Otherwise, if they have good cytogenetics, they may have a prognosis around 70% also. CML in compared to adults, CML is not permanent. Having chronoma CML. Only 2 to 3% of the children have CML, and CML they usually present with fever, huge splenomegaly for about a month. And the specific finding is the presence of BCR-ABL fusion protein, Philadelphia chromosome in these blast cells. That is the diagnostic of CML. And the silent symptoms they are present because they have chronic symptoms for about 3 months, 4 months. They present with weight loss, fatigue, fever, huge spleen, and sometimes the neurological symptoms that is due to the high count. They usually present with the WBC count more than 50,000 up to lakhs. Okay, and the symptoms are due to high WBC counts. But as it is less common, so हम इतना ज़्यादा detail में इसको नहीं करेंगे. The basic treatment of CML is the targeted therapy. We use the inhibitors of BCR-ABL gene, tyrosine kinase inhibitors, imatinib, and nowadays dasatinib. And we also use hydroxyzine previously. The basic treatment is with the chemotherapy or the targeted therapy in case of CML, and they give very good response with these targeted therapy. JMML, juvenile myelomonocytic leukemia is the leukemia of the monocytic cells, and this is account for less than 1%. Very, very rare, but they have very bad prognosis. There is no Philadelphia chromosome in them, and they are only treated only and only by the stem cell transplantation. With stem cell transplant, they have the prognosis, even with the transplant, they have a very bad prognosis around 30 to 50% only. Okay. Last is the leukemias is the infantile leukemia. Basically, we kept infantile leukemia separately because they have, this is a very aggressive tumor, aggressive hematological malignancy that usually occur in less than 1 year of age group. That's why if the child is present with leukemia in less than 1 year group, they are kept in a very, very high risk group. And this is account for about 2% of all the malignancies. Very bad prognosis. They have a chromosomal translocation, particularly JMML. And they have a translocation of MML gene. MML gene 11q23 translocation in more than 80% of the cases. The majority is with them. And even though we have to give chemotherapy, very high dose chemotherapy. With chemotherapy, we put the child in remission, and the ultimate is the bone marrow transplant if we know we want a good prognosis. Otherwise, even with high dose chemotherapy and bone marrow transplant, they have a very bad prognosis. Intensive chemotherapy and stem cell transplant. Okay? Then this is all about the leukemia. Leukemias these are all related to the hematological malignancy that is due to the mutation in the hematopoietic stem cell. Now the lymphomas. Lymphomas are all the hematological malignancies, and lymphoma, these are the malignancies of the lymphoid tissue. Lymphoid tissue including these are lymph nodes, spleen, liver, skin lymphoid tissues, and lymphoid tissues in our oral cavity. If they have mutations, they get affected with these cells. These are the lymphomas. Lymphoma, the three most common. This is the third. Second is the first most common tumor or malignancy in children is the leukemias. Second is the brain tumors is are the second, and third one are the lymphomas. Lymphomas basically broad categorized into Hodgkin disease and the non-Hodgkin disease. Hodgkin disease is a bit separate lymphoma. They have a very good prognosis in childhood age group. This malignant process in the lymphoreticular system, that is are the lymph nodes, spleen, liver, and Hodgkin lymphomas account for about 6% of all the childhood cancer. More common in children, less common in less than 10 years of the age group, more common in adolescent age group. They have usually two phases. One phase, the first phase hota hai, peak phase is in the age group around 10 to 18, and the second phase in the adults about after 65 years of age. The hallmark of Hodgkin lymphoma are the Reed-Sternberg cells, as you read in your pathology. Hallmark of Hodgkin lymphoma is the Reed-Sternberg cells that have the two multi-lobated nuclei, two eyes. Like clonal in origin arises from the germinal center of the B cells in the lymphoid tissue. Basically, Hodgkin lymphomas, they usually, the most common presentation is the lymphadenopathy. They usually present with the lymphadenopathy. Most commonly, the cervical lymph node. They may present with distress. If there is enlargement of the lymph node in the mediastinum, they present with a huge mass in the mediastinum with signs of respiratory distress, cough, dyspnea, and hypoxia. They may present with hepatosplenomegaly. Sometimes there may be involvement of these tissue with the bone marrow, so they may present with the signs of bone marrow failure sometimes. Then we categorize it into from lymphoma to leukemia. If there is involvement of the bone marrow and the blast in the bone marrow is more than 25%, we can categorize not into lymphoma, it is categorized as leukemia also. Okay. So most of the time, the common presentation is a lymphadenopathy, painless, non-tender, multiple, highly enlarged lymph nodes. They may present with hepatosplenomegaly. They may present with the sign of distress, and they may present with abdominal distension if there is a sign. But in Hodgkin lymphoma, the common presentation is this lymphadenopathy and distress. So the classification of Hodgkin lymphomas depends upon the histopathology. Histopathologically, different lymphocyte predominant, mixed cellularity, nodular sclerosis, and lymphocyte depletion. Those who have lymphocyte predominant and nodular sclerosis have good prognosis, as compared to those who have histopathology of lymphocyte depletion and mixed cellularity. They have a bit poor prognosis. But those those patients of Hodgkin lymphoma who are present with the B symptoms, they have systemic symptoms like fever, weight loss, or night sweats. These are called the B symptoms. Those who present with these symptoms, they have more bad prognosis as compared to those children who present with lymph nodes involvement in enlargement, but they do not have the B symptoms. They have much good prognosis as compared to those children who have present with this with B symptoms. And B symptoms include high-grade fever, prolonged weight loss, and night sweats. For the diagnosis, in case of lymphoma, the diagnosis is not on the basis of bone marrow. The diagnosis is on the basis of the biopsy of the lymphoid tissue. Whatever the lymphoid tissue is easily accessible, you have to go for the excisional biopsy, not fine needle biopsy. We need total excisional biopsy. And for histopathology, we need light microscopy, immunohistochemistry, molecular studies, and all that. Apart from the definitive diagnosis through biopsy, we need chest X-ray for the mediastinal mass. We may need CT scan, whole PAT scan, CT scan, brain, head and neck, abdomen, pelvis, to assess where the tissues get involved. We may go for bone scan for the involvement to assess for staging of the tumor. We need CT scan, head and neck, abdomen, pelvis, bone scan, and nowadays the best facility is the PAT scan. PAT scan is the combination of the CT scan plus proton emission, and they give a very good assessment, overall assessment, where the disease get spread, which size get involved easily. So nowadays we do PAT scan at the time of diagnosis, and after giving chemotherapy, we again repeat the PAT scan for the further assessment to assess the response of the chemotherapy. Okay, so The basic definitive diagnosis on the basis of your biopsy, your PAT scan, and for supportive, you need CT scan, you need CBC-ESR, you may need bilateral bone marrow aspiration to assess for the involvement of the whether the bone marrow is involved or not. Okay, and we may also do LDH and ESR, because those who have high ferritin, high LDH count have more poor prognosis as compared to those who have good ESR, less LDH. Okay, and what is the staging of Hodgkin lymphoma? Stage 1, if there is involvement of the single lymph node group. If the two lymph node group or two lymphoid tissues get involved on the same side of the diaphragm, same side, stage 2. If above and below the diaphragm, two sides are involved, it is the stage 3. Like if there is involvement of the lymph nodes above the diaphragm and below the diaphragm, it is directly stage 3. And if there is bone marrow involvement, there is involvement of CNS, and this is stage 4. Treatment basically depends upon the stage of the disease. The stage of the disease, age of diagnosis, and presence of B symptoms, and the size of the bulky lymph. If there is bulky lymph nodes involvement, those who have bulk lymph node, those who have B symptoms, those who have severe ILR lymphadenopathy, and we categorize into higher risk group stage, the higher stage, and we give more toxic chemotherapy as compared to the standard stage 1 and B. Maybe stage 1A only need the surgical removal only, no chemotherapy. But stage 1B and stage 2 and 3, they require chemotherapy. And sometimes in stage 3, we need radiation therapy also. The basic treatment is the chemotherapy. And if the stage is having a bulky disease and stage 3, we may need radiation therapy also. Okay. So the basic is the chemotherapy and the radiation therapy. And if there is large lymph nodes involved, we may need surgery. But most of the time, these get resolved by chemotherapy. The prognostic factor, as we said, that less than 10 years of age group is a favorable sign, but non-bulky disease is favorable. Unfavorable is the B symptoms, huge lymph nodes, and depends upon the histopathology. If it is a mixed cellularity, lymphocyte predominant, nodular sclerosis has a good prognosis as compared to those who have depleted lymphocytes. Okay, so early stage disease with no B symptoms, very good prognosis with more than 95%. Even with the advanced disease, lymphoma has a very good prognosis, is around 90% with good chemotherapy and radiotherapy. Even with relapse of the lymphoma, we can treat the patient with chemotherapy, and they also have a very good prognosis, around 70%. So lymphoma in children, particularly the Hodgkin lymphoma, has a very, very good prognosis in children. It depends upon the age and the presence of the symptoms. So these are all about the Hodgkin lymphoma. Now the non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Basically, non-Hodgkin lymphoma is a 6%. 60% of all the lymphoma are the non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And these are more common in around less than 5 years. Lymphomas are very rare in children. But lymphoma we consider in age group more than 8 to 9 years. Okay, and more common in adolescent age group. Though further, the subtypes of the non-Hodgkin lymphomas include the Burkitt lymphoma, lymphoblastic lymphoma, diffuse large B-cell, and aplastic lymphoma. These are all the RATA. But this is the classification of non-Hodgkin lymphoma. At your level, you have to know better more about leukemias, particularly the acute lymphoblastic leukemia. You also have to know what is the AML, and you have to know what are the lymphomas and what are the two types, Hodgkin and non-Hodgkin. Hodgkin is more common and have good prognosis. So basic knowledge about the Hodgkin lymphoma and basic about the non-Hodgkin. Non-Hodgkin, maybe you do not have to remember what are the subtypes, but only you have to remember what you have to know how. Okay, what is the non-Hodgkin lymphoma? Because in non-Hodgkin lymphoma, Burkitt lymphoma is 40% of all the Hodgkin lymphoma is the Burkitt lymphoma. And Burkitt lymphoma, if we treat early, in early stages, it's a very, very good prognosis as compared to the anaplastic large lymphoma. Okay, 40% Burkitt's and then lymphoblastic lymphoma. Lymphoblastic lymphoma B cells, it is treated as like a leukemia, pre-B cell leukemia. It's treated with chemotherapy. We treat same as acute lymphoblastic leukemia of pre-B cell lymphoma. 80% T cell hote hain and 20% B. B cell is treated as like a leukemia. Diffuse large B cell These are the B cell origin, T cell में जो हमारे आते हैं ना anaplastic आते हैं, और lymphoblastic lymphoma. Burkitt's is basically for the B cell origin, mature B cells, L3. The previous morphology class L3 is the Burkitt's, and Burkitt's have a very good prognosis if treated early. Burkitt lymphoma, they usually present with the abdominal. Most of the time, they present with the abdominal mass. Mass now called the ascites, abdominal tumor, or they may present sometimes with the chest mass. The most common is they present with abdominal tumor. Sometimes they may present with the involvement of the bone marrow and CNS that has a high risk, and they need more toxic chemotherapy with bad prognosis. But if there is only involvement of the abdominal tumor, they have a very good prognosis. Only with the chemotherapy, they do not need radiation, or they do not need any transplant. They only with the chemotherapy they have a good prognosis. Lymphoblastic lymphoma treat, if of B type, it's treated like acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Okay. Anaplastic large cell lymphoma, they may present with the skin manifestation, skin nodules. They may present with a mass in the oral cavity. Okay. So, and for the diagnosis, they need tissue biopsy. For a Hodgkin and non-Hodgkin, they both need, for definitive diagnosis, they need biopsy, and biopsy. And for staging, for purpose, we need bone marrow aspiration, we need CT scan, we need PET scan. But these are all for the staging and prognosis. No, diagnosis is only on base of your biopsy. Treatment is basically systemic chemotherapy, intrathecal chemotherapy, if there is involvement of the CNS, intrathecal chemotherapy. Sometimes, in some cases, high risk, we need chemotherapy, radiation therapy also. Okay. So, with localized disease, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, like in Burkitt, they have very, very good survival of 90 to 100%. But in advanced disease, even with the advanced disease, they have a survival over 60 to 95%. But in certain diseases like T cell lymphomas, or like in case of anaplastic, they are diffuse large B cell with high risk, they have a survival around 60% with only with your chemotherapy. No need of transplant. Transplant is needed only in case of very high risk, and also when wherever there is relapse, we do directly give chemotherapy for remission and then go for bone marrow transplant in children. So overall is that in children, the prognosis of leukemia, hematological malignancy is very good, even with your conventional chemotherapy in certain age group. They may do not even need radiation. And for CNS disease, we need to give intrathecal chemotherapy. Even in case of leukemias, if they do not have CNS disease, we have to give CNS therapy by intrathecal chemotherapy to prevent the disease to spread in the CNS. Okay, so this is the overall about leukemia and lymphoma. If you have any question, you can ask it. We have about 10 or 18 minutes. Otherwise, I give you the scenario and you may give the answer of it. G, any question? G. So I read the question and answer it. What is filtrophilism? Filtrophilism is BCR-ABL mutation. These are the genes that are normally present. That are not normally present. Whenever these mutations are present, that is responsible for rapid proliferation of mutations in the cells. And filtrophilia chromosome is present in CML most of the time. But if it is present in acute leukemia, it has very bad prognosis. Okay. Next, yes, scenario. Scenario is at the channel, so हम scenario देते हैं. Okay. क्योंकि questions तो फिर आए ना आए अभी तो के. So scenario is that a child present at a 3 years male child present in ER with severe respiratory distress. He had a history of fever for the past 2 weeks and history of difficulty in laying down for the past one week. Now he's present in ER with the signs of severe distress. What could be your prevention for your differential diagnosis in this child? Or if you have diagnosis in all these leukemia and lymphoma, what could be your differential diagnosis? Anyone want to give the answer? Which book for reference is basically Nelson? नेल्सन से पढ़े काफी है आपके लिए. Mediastinal mass, these are the lymphoid tissue involvement of disease with of the lymphoid tissues in the mediastinum is the mediastinal mass. If there is a huge mediastinal mass that compress your airway tract and the child present with distress, like in this scenario, AML. Yes, AML can present with a huge mass, but the most likely diagnosis is the lymphoma. T cell leukemia or T cell lymphoma can or Hodgkin lymphoma, they can present with the mediastinal mass जो common होते हैं ना, T cell leukemia, T cell lymphoma, B cell lymphoma, and like in Burkitt's can also present. Non-Hodgkin lymphoma can also present with respiratory distress if there is involvement of AML. Most of the time, usually do not present with the mediastinal mass. They most of the time AML present with high grade fever, bleeding, gum bleeding, gingival hyperplasia. Okay. Acha. Next scenario is that 10 years, 12 years of child present in OPD with a history of pilar for the past 2 weeks and fever for the past 2 weeks. And now on examination, they have lymph nodes, cervical lymph nodes palpable, and he have hepatosplenomegaly. What could be your differential diagnosis? Answer दो ना भाई, लिखो. Like this scenario, ना क्या कहते देखो, they present with these are they present with pilar, so the WBC, the RBCs get down. They present with lymph nodes issue. They present with bleeding, or you find that there's a lymph nodes involvement, and they have TQ all over the body. Then there is low platelet count, there's decreased WBC count, or they are pallor, they have anemia, so they have decreased hemoglobin also. They present with the marrow failure. And with marrow failure, your differential diagnosis, including the aplastic anemia, that your differential diagnosis is some severe infection with DIC, your differential diagnosis may be leukemia. Leukemia could be ALL or AML. Okay? You can't say on these signs and symptoms that is AML or ALL. You can only say that is acute leukemia with marrow failure. So, okay? And lymphoma, acha. This different scenario is that a child otherwise healthy and otherwise good weight, only present with a lymph node at the only present with the cervical lymph node, single large lymph node, and on examination you find that the child is not anemic, there is no fever, there is no history of weight loss, but only have a lymph node, cervical lymph node of about 5 to 6 centimeter, non-tender, mobile. Okay. And what could be a differential diagnosis at this stage? The differential diagnosis of this scenario is Hodgkin lymphoma. You can say lymphoma, not leukemia. Leukemia is usually present with the signs and symptoms of marrow failure. But lymphoma, like particularly the Hodgkin lymphoma, only present without B symptoms, only present with a lymph node enlargement. Okay. And if the child have B symptoms, they usually have multiple lymph nodes involvement, plaque, having fever, weight loss, and night sweat for the past 1 month or so. Acha. This is salidinitis maybe. What is salidinitis? Infection maybe, but they usually do not present with the signs and symptoms of the marrow failure. They usually present with fever, not with the TK and bruises. See, na? They do not present with thrombocytopenia. So your differential is like that. That could be your differential diagnosis. Okay, but if lymph node is there, can the child with tonsillitis may present with lymph node enlargement, but these lymph nodes are usually tender and they have a history of fever is there, and on examination they have enlarged pus lymph nodes, pus on the lymph nodes. So your differential diagnosis all the base on your good history, your examination, and finally on your workup. And workup depends upon your differential diagnosis on the basis of history and examination. Till what extent do we have to learn the molecular aspect? देखो बेटा आप लोगों को इस स्टेज पे MBBS के लेवल पे 3rd year 4th year final year पे आपको बेसिकली पता होना चाहिए कि what are the hematological malignancies, type which is most common, and what are the signs and symptoms the child present with leukemia and with lymphoma, and how you diagnose this case, and particularly a case of leukemia, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, what is the basic management. Do not write the name of the chemotherapy, only you can write down they need chemotherapy, they need radiation, whatever they want. Okay, itna, and what is the prognosis, what is the prognosis of AML and what is the prognosis of ALL. इससे ज्यादा नहीं, molecular level पे इतना, हाँ इतना होना चाहिए, इतना पता जरूर होना चाहिए कि on the basis of your cytogenetics or molecular study you can stratify the tumors nowadays, and on the basis of that stratification we give chemotherapy depends upon the status of the child, because with the standards we give less chemotherapy with very high risk we give more intense chemotherapy, even they need bone marrow transplant. तो आपके लिए इतना काफी है, इतना ज्यादा डिटेल में जो क्लासिफिकेशन फिलहाल दिमाग है ये तो रट्टा ही है सारा, लेकिन बेसिक क्लासिफिकेशन कि बेसिक पैथोजेनेसिस क्या है, कौन सा टिश्यू इन्वॉल्व है, हेमेटोपोटिक स्टेम सेल लिम्फोमा में कौन सा टिश्यू इन्वॉल्व है, व्हाट आर द बेसिक टाइप्स, व्हाट आर द कॉमन साइन एंड सिम्टम्स, सो दैट यू कैन असेस द चाइल्ड एंड मेक द डिफरेंशियल डायग्नोसिस. इतना काफी है आप लोगों के लिए. एनी क्वेश्चन यू वांट, क्योंकि टाइम हो गया. अगर आपको फर्दर कोई और क्वेश्चन हो तो बेटा आप लोग ईमेल कर सकते हो.